Hello, I'm Richard Chambers, President and CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors. At a recent event sponsored by the IA's Financial Services Audit Center, one of the guest speakers made a passing reference to the internal auditors checking boxes. Not surprisingly, this prompted a collective wince from some in the crowd of more than 400 internal audit professionals. It reminded me of an incident a few years ago when a member of Congress, who upon meeting me referred to internal auditors as bean counters. In response, I gently suggested that we used to count the beans, but today internal auditors are more apt to be examining how the beans are grown, how they're harvested, and how they're taken to market. My response elicited an approving nod from the congressman. The disparaging characterizations of what we do are enough to drive any member of our profession crazy. I'll be the first to admit that internal audit has struggled to explain what we do, but we should be well past the point where we are incorrectly considered box checkers or bean counters. Why these stereotypes or stigmas persist is beyond me. But at some point, we need to just move beyond complaining about them. There is a solution, and it involves each of us becoming active advocates for the profession and vocal proponents of the contributions we make. This may not come easily for some practitioners who may consider the idea of being a cheerleader for internal audit as unprofessional or unbecoming. But it is a bigger strategic mistake to allow awareness gaps to fester rather than to risk being seen as sales professionals. Any resistance to explaining what we do and why serves only to strengthen uninformed views and stereotypes. In the past, I've described the critical characteristics of a modern chief audit executive. The three most relevant to this conversation are curiosity, creativity, and initiative. A natural curiosity and desire to dig deeper is a good trait for any internal auditor. Successful internal auditors need to ask probing questions to gain the necessary understanding of why things work the way they do or why they don't work. My sense is that simple unfamiliarity with the profession is at the heart of the misconceptions. If so, challenging these misconceptions is the crucial first step toward correcting the fallacies. Just as good CAEs know they must educate management and audit committees and boards about what internal audit really does, so should every internal auditor endeavor to educate the public. Back in 2012, I wrote a blog that described 5 classic myths about internal auditing. The top myth was that internal auditors are accountants by trade. That myth contributes mightily to the bean counter stereotype. But it can be overcome by telling others about internal audit's growing scope of work, which now encompasses so much more than assessing the adequacy of financial controls. Internal auditors thrive on challenge and problem solving. The most successful among us are able to think outside the box and identify root causes of complex problems or deficiencies. This innate creativity can be applied to better communicating the essence of our work. We must be willing to try new approaches to explain the profession and the value it brings to organizations. Successful internal auditors are also self-starters. On their own, they seek out opportunities to improve their organizations and eagerly take on the role of agents of change. But in order to be true agents of change, we must also carry our message to those outside the profession. I urge you and other internal auditors to share these messages. Changing deep-seated misconceptions takes time, but that should not discourage us from making every effort to correct them. Our goal should be a world in which no one calls internal auditors the bean counters. I'm Richard Chambers, President and CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors.